Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Essential Pause. I am your host, Dr. Carrie Borkowski. This is our first official episode. I'm super excited. So this is a podcast about slowing down, noticing, and finding presence in the middle of our busy and often uncomfortable lives. As I said, I'm Carrie Borkowski. I'm an educator, researcher, coach, and author of a couple of books, including Dancing with Discomfort. Each week on our pod, I will share stories, practices, reflections to help you build self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the stamina to stay grounded in moments of uncertainty. This is your invitation to take a breath, create some space, and discover the power of the essential pause. Now, I have to be honest, I'm an educator and a researcher, and so I always love a good article, resource to support what I'm talking about. And I promise this is not going to be a deep dive into the research. I will keep it as light as possible. But I do want to try in each episode to offer some evidence of some of the things I'm talking about. So for example, what is important about a pause, right? What that seems in some ways maybe not important or insignificant. So there was a University of Texas study, and they found that even brief reflection, taking a moment, and in this case, while studying, boosts memory and connections to new information. So if you're not buying into pausing to check in with your emotions or to check in around mindfulness, maybe you're looking for something that's more utilitarian, if you will, useful in your life. Reflection has that power. So if you are working on something in your office, whether it's home or in a physical office, maybe you're listening and studying for an exam or in a class, there's research out there that shows reflections boost memory and help us to connect to new information. Maybe you're learning a new instrument. What if while you were practicing, you took a pause, you took a moment? Perhaps it would help you to continue to grow in that area. It just helps us to reinforce the idea that choosing to pause during an unexpected gap or a needed gap rather than rushing to fill the gap can have value. The other thing I wanted to bring attention to is that there's research on, and I'm not as familiar with this, but I found this. It's called attention restoration theory. It shows that nature-based what they call micro breaks, so even just a couple of minutes outdoors, can improve performance and boost creativity. So again, if you're not buying into just pausing in the moment, what if you just stepped away from whatever you were doing and went outside and took a breath of fresh air, or went to the window wherever you are working, playing, living, and took in that air, or looked around at your surroundings, the natural surroundings? Who knows? It might help, again, those small, unexpected pauses like stepping outside. Maybe it'll make a difference. So today, I want to share a story about the unexpected kind of pause that I mentioned in the introduction. The kind that doesn't arrive on your calendar or in your carefully crafted routine. Where I live, in the middle of a forest, basically, power outages are not uncommon. I should also say we live in a town that is notorious or famous, whatever your perspective is, for winds. When we have storms, we have windstorms. These power outages and these windstorms always seem to arrive at the worst possible moment. I work from home. I teach graduate students on Zoom. I coach on Zoom. I do all sorts of things with my computer. And so, of course, these often happen right before a Zoom meeting, in the middle of a deadline, or when my laptop battery is already low. When the power goes out, of course, the first thing I feel is frustrated. And I also feel a little panicky because my kids are running around trying to figure out how they're going to charge or get to do whatever they were doing when it was interrupted by the power. Sometimes I even panic a little, especially if I'm getting ready to hop on a Zoom session with grad students or with coaching clients, or maybe I was in the middle of a session and didn't have a chance to warn them. Without the Wi-Fi, without my usual tools, my workday can grind to a halt. And in fact, it has happened several times. This kind of pause feels disruptive, like something happening to me rather than for me or me creating the disruption. I will say, though, upon lots and lots of reflection and learning from these different experiences, over time, these moments of disruption have offered me something else too. When the power stays out, I found myself building blanket forts with my kids, reading books together by flashlight, or heading outside to play, assuming that it's safe, right? That trees aren't falling and it's not lightning and thundering or a blizzard. And what I've discovered is that what began as an interruption often feels more like an invitation, an unexpected pause with surprising possibilities. Pauses don't always look like intentional breathing or planned time off. Sometimes they show up uninvited through a storm, a delay, something's broken, or even an inconvenient change of plans. They remind us that not all pauses are neat or tidy. In fact, I would argue most are probably not. And yet these pauses hold potential to reset our attention, to connect with others, and to remind us of what matters. Now, look, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm not asking you to be Pollyanna about this. I'm not asking you to be overly optimistic or overly positive. When I work with coaching clients, we talk about this idea of reframing or perspective taking. And so what I am asking you to consider is, if you could imagine when that disruption happened that was out of your control, that was unexpected, you are coming at it with one perspective. And what I'd like you to consider is, what's another perspective? What's another one after that, right? We know that there are multiple ways of looking at this. And I have to be honest, I've learned from my coaching clients, and I've also learned from my kids that my perspective may not always be the right one, right? I mean, my perspective is just that. It's one perspective. And what I've learned from my kids is what seems like at times a scary, worrisome, sometimes panic-inducing power outage is an opportunity to make a blanket fort. And so I'm just inviting you, and I invite my grad students, my coaching clients, I'm inviting you to just consider the possibility of another perspective. This week in Essential Practice, and if you haven't listened to the introduction, I'll just remind you, I will offer, or if I have a co-host, perhaps they will offer an invitation, an opportunity to experiment, because the only way to get better at this or to integrate it into your routine is to try, right? And again, I tell coaching clients, the trying part is not about perfection. It's not about doing it right. And I'm holding up air quotes. Trying is just that. It's trying. And then asking yourself, what's working? What's not working? What got in my way? What felt supportive? How could I tweak that so it feels more resonant for me, right? Experimenting. So this week in Essential Practice, I invite you to notice an unexpected pause in your own life. It might be something as small as a delayed meeting, a glitch with your laptop, a glitch with your sound or with someone else's video, or any moment when things just don't go as planned. Instead of rushing past it or filling the gap, see if you can lean into it. What else does this moment make possible? How might you reframe inconvenience, right? Perceived inconvenience as invitation. All right. So thanks for joining me in the pause today. I hope these reflections and practices help you find moments of presence in your life. If you'd like to keep exploring, you can find more stories and resources on my Substack, also called Essential Pause. Until next time, take a breath, notice the moment, And remember, the pause is always available to you. See you soon.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed what you just heard, we have a whole universe of podcasts waiting for you. Simply search Dragon Podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. You can also explore our full lineup and discover new shows at podbean.com/dragonpodcasts. That's podbean.com/dragonpodcasts.